Okay, it's April 14th, 2012. This is the Collin County Sheriff Vetting Committee from the North Texas Council. I'm Brian Gallimore from Allen, Texas, and I'm going to read the rules that we're going to go through today. The first one is no one is allowed to be in the room except the vetting panel and the candidate. All electronics are allowed in the room should be turned off, except laptops that are being used by the vetting committee members for the video processing. No written material or notes will be taken by the candidate. North Texas Council vetting panel members and candidates agree that all questions and responses at this vetting session are to remain confidential property until videos are uploaded and considered public information on the NTC website or an alternate website. Verbal questions will be asked and verbal responses to those questions will be given with 2-minute responses to each question. The candidate will receive a copy of his or her vetting interview upon which time the video is posted to the North Texas Council website. Okay. Barbara, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Barbara Harless. I'm from Murphy, Texas.
Okay, thanks. And then Michael Brooks, please go ahead and take the opportunity to take 2 minutes and introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name is Michael Brooks. I am running for sheriff here in Collin County. I've lived here in Collin County for almost 4.5 years. I moved here back in December of 2007, and I retired from the El Paso Police Department. I spent 24 years in law enforcement, almost all of it in El Paso. I did spend 9 months in Midland. When I graduated from the police academy in El Paso, I spent a year in El Paso, and Midland Police came out and put a big push on trying to get recruits to go to there. And of course, they were paying us $8,000 more a year, because I was making $17,000 a year starting as a police officer in 1984 down in El Paso. I returned to El Paso. My family was there. My current wife, who I was dating at the time, was there going to school, and so I decided it was best to go back to El Paso, so I did. I spent almost about 8 years in patrol down in the worst part of El Paso, down in Central Patrol. I then moved to a beat task force with Border Patrol, where we worked with Border Patrol. I spent almost a year there with them. I then took a promotional exam, promoted to detective. Spent the remainder of my career as a detective and working in federal task forces. I worked with auto theft task force. I also worked with DEA. I worked with a bunch of tactical units targeting major crime, worked with Customs and Border Patrol on a daily basis, along with the United States Marshals targeting the major offenders. And then I was offered a job to come work for a private company, which moved me here to Dallas-Fort Worth, and I handle major crime for them in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Memphis, Tennessee.
That's a lot.
That is.
Okay. Right. The first question we're going to ask you, what is the most important job of a county sheriff?
Well, I believe the most important job of the county sheriff is to protect the people, enforce the laws, and they should be enforced clearly. I mean, it's black and white. The way the law is written, you enforce them. You are here to serve the county and the people. Now, here in Collin County and in most sheriff's departments, they do deal mostly with the unincorporated areas in the county, but they can also be a tool with the rest of the county by helping bring all the law enforcement agencies together and target crime, and that's what I plan on doing if elected.
Right. The Bill of Rights was ratified in 1791. Not one of the first 10 amendments has been amended since ratification. Does this mean that the Bill of Rights mean today what they meant in 1789?
In my opinion, they do. And I know that because the way the world has changed, and the political views of different agencies. I mean, I also believe that when the Bill of Rights was made, it was more to one party. It wasn't to have 2 or 3 different parties to try to enforce laws. And since it has gone to that, now we have groups that are trying to change a lot of the current laws in our country. And I don't believe that that is correct. I know that everybody tries to amend them, but the main thing is to protect our Constitution the way it is written. And that's what I'll do as your sheriff.
Okay. The Second Amendment reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The question is, what does the term militia mean?
Well, it's a good question. I believe that a militia is a group of people that are protecting their rights, and they do that by upholding the laws that have been written for them, and that includes bearing arms. I am very pro keep your firearms, because you know what, I own guns. I believe that's the reason our country is free, is because if somebody tried to invade us, everybody has the right to have arms, and that's how we keep ourselves free. And I think that's the only way that we will keep ourselves from becoming a communist country. And so that's my definition of that.
Okay, great. What does well-regulated mean in the Second Amendment?
Oh, well-regulated. And of course, I believe that what it is now my belief of it is that they want to control, such as major felons, from people that have committed violent crimes, that continue to use weapons as a way to commit crimes. I do believe that, you know what, if you are found guilty of that, that you should not have that right to bear arms, because more than likely you will continue the means that you have been going on in causing deaths and crime. And so I believe that that's what they mean by regulating it. I don't believe it's regulated that any common person should not be allowed to have a gun. And so that is the way I look at it, is to stop people that are going to commit crimes with those weapons.
Okay. Do we have any federal laws in violation of the Second Amendment? If so, which ones?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't follow up a lot on the federal laws, because that's not something that we enforced as a police officer. I mean, we would work with our federal agencies. Now, I do believe that there are certain states that have changed the laws to be stricter. And do I believe that that's right? I don't, but I mean, unfortunately, we allow states to make certain laws for their state. And Texas is very pro-gun, in my opinion, and I'm glad for that, and that's why I live here. And so, yeah, do I believe that, yeah, in different states, and I know that the federal government is trying to take more control over our weapons, and I hope that that never happens. And again, that's why I live in Texas, is that we have the right to bear arms, and it's pretty good. I know we do have certain laws where, you know, machine guns and silencers, you have to have an approval of a sheriff in order to get that. But in certain cases, that's probably not a bad thing, because at least you can do background searches on the people that want those, and what would they really need those for. But I don't have a problem with giving that out to people if there is a strict background to make sure that, you know what, the reason they're having it is not to commit crimes.
Okay. Do we have any state laws in violation of the Second Amendment? If so, in which ones?
I don't believe we have any state laws in violation of them. You know, the concealed handgun law, I like it. But should you have to go and have a license to be able to carry a gun? I think it's good as far as being able to do a background on somebody and make sure that the people that should, make sure that the criminals don't. But unfortunately, even if we took all our guns away, the criminals would get guns. They would find a way to get guns, and it would not be good. So, like in Arizona, they allow them to be carried unconcealed. You know what? I like that law too. I've been to Arizona quite a bit, and you know what? I actually believe that that stops more crime because, usually when criminals decide to commit a crime, they walk in and they check out the area. Well, if you walk in and you see 5 guys sitting there with a gun, you're probably not going to commit that crime. So I kind of like that. And the concealed handgun law is good, but as far as I know, Texas, I don't believe they do have any laws that go against the gun laws.
Okay. What is the 2012 budget for the Sheriff's Office, and what percentage of revenue is derived from federal, state, and county sources?
I'll be honest, I have never worked in the Sheriff's Office, and I do believe it's about $35 million. I don't know exactly the percentage of state, federal, and county that comes from.
Okay. Acceptance of federal funds comes with strings attached. What areas do you see acceptance of federal funds to have undesirable consequences, and give 2 examples where we would refuse federal funds?
Well, federal funds usually come, and they usually come with strings attached to them. You have to look at them closely. Like the 287G, they come with federal funds. And a lot of times the way that these federal grants are given out is that at some time frame, those funds will go away, and your city or county will actually have to pick up the payment for those people if you want to keep them. And 287G is something that actually Mr. Obama is trying to cut a lot of the funding on. And just like down in Arizona, he became very stringent on Sheriff Joe and tried to use that as a way, and that is the downfall. So I can understand where Sheriff Joe finally said that's it, and he cut it all out and he quit. And I think you do have to stand up to that. And so in that situation, absolutely, I believe that you would just walk away from it. Auto theft task forces are kind of built that same way. I know down in Miami-Dade, they have the best cargo union in the country. And unfortunately, because of federal funding, they have now done away with that unit. And that's sad because they were the best in the country. And now all of a sudden you're starting to see major organized groups now targeting Miami, Florida again. And I deal with those situations. So it's hard to say. I don't believe that I would allow the federal government to take control of my agencies. And so those things I would have to walk away. I can't give you absolutely specifics because you'd have to read each and every one.
All right. Where will you make cuts to the sheriff's budget, if any?
Well, I don't believe that as quick as the county is growing and the amount of people that are coming into the county, and Collin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. So I don't believe you'd have to make a cut in your budget, because as long as you have people coming in and moving in, and more people are moving in, then more revenue is coming in, and all those people have to pay taxes. And all I would be asking for is you're taxing them, and part of that tax is for your law enforcement protection. Just give us that part of what is due to us, and I don't believe you'd have to cut your budget.
Okay. Where will you propose to increase the sheriff's budget?
I will not increase the sheriff's budget if it's going to accrue new taxes to any of the citizens. But there is no doubt if I was going to add, it would have to be in personnel. Currently, the staffing for the sheriff's department, they say, is 36 officers that are actually out in the field. There's about 61 sworn. Well, there's about 101 sworn, but there's about 60 sworn deputies. And currently the manning is that they're putting out 5 police cars for 880 square miles for day shift, for evening shift, and 4 on graveyards. And I just don't believe that that's an adequate amount to protect the people in the incorporated cities. So I do believe that my budget would be towards manpower.
Okay, to what extent should the Collin County Sheriff uphold his sworn oath or affirmation to protect and defend the privacy clauses of the Constitution?
I believe the sheriff should protect it exactly the way that it's written and through the state laws. I mean, I believe that you have the right to be private. And I know that certain new laws in the federal government have allowed the government to take a little more advantage into looking into people's backgrounds. And you know, it's a tough thing. I mean, you definitely don't want another 9/11. But I think that you need to have absolutely probable cause in order to look into people's backgrounds. I don't believe that anybody should be able to look into anybody's background just to look. And I believe that as your sheriff, you need to uphold that. Now, I mean, for my department, that's exactly how I will keep it. We will uphold that. We will not be looking into people for no reason, because I don't believe that's what the sheriff should be doing anyways.
Okay, great. The Fourth Amendment states, quote, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized." Do you believe that the IRS conducting random audits on innocent citizens is a proper and constitutional procedure?
Now, I don't know all the rules behind IRS, okay, and I have worked with that agency at times. I don't believe that now, I guess our federal law says that they're allowed to audit us, and the IRS is somebody that I laugh because the criminals are more afraid of the IRS than they are the police department. I'll just be honest with you on that, and most people are. And I know that they have a job and a duty, but do I believe that they should just be picking any random person to do an audit on? Absolutely not. Now, I mean, if they have some kind of probable cause in order to do that audit, I mean, they show that in the tax returns that for some reason, you know, something's not adding up. You live in an $800,000 home, but you make $30,000 a year. You know, that's probably gonna throw up some red flags for anybody. And I know that I deal with that on a regular basis because we dealt with this actually down here in Fort Worth on a major crook. And he had no income, but he had an $800,000 home, and we've proven that, you know, he was involved in a lot of major crime in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so it was something that they did look at. So it's tough, but I know they have their job. Is it something that the sheriff's department can stop? I don't believe it is. But I will, you know, I will uphold our laws always to the hilt. I mean, There will be no violations. And we will, if I get complaints, we will look into it, even against our own federal agencies.
What is a fusion center, and what is the relationship between Collin County Sheriff's Department and the North Central Texas Fusion Center in McKinney?
The Fusion Center, from my understanding, is an agency in which takes crime data and keeps it. And the departments can actually go to that Fusion Center and get some of the intelligence. Now, I have, and again, because of the job that I currently have, I speak to a lot of law enforcement officers, and they say sometimes it's difficult to get information from the Fusion Center. And so I don't know exactly how they use it here. I mean, we had crime analysts where I come from, and we had 6 regions. And every region had their own crime analyst. And we put on a major intelligence meeting. And we invited all the agencies around to come to that intelligence meeting. And they shared information on major crimes. That's something that I have proposed to do. And in that, after all the information is taken down, then it is redistributed through email to every single police officer in every department. And that is where they are able to see that criminal vehicles, suspect information, and the type of crimes that they're occurring. That way, when they're on the street driving around and all of a sudden they see, hey, you know what, I read this. I believe the way that I propose to do it would be better than what the Fusion Center is doing now, because when I'm talking to law enforcement, they're telling me that a lot of them don't use it. So if it's not being used, then what's the purpose for it?
All right. What is the role and duty of the Sheriff's Department relative to immigration laws?
Immigration is a tough thing. And it's something I deal with on a regular basis where I was from, because I was from El Paso, and it is the worst border in the country. And I do believe that you have to enforce all the laws. And that 287G is a program in which the federal government will come in and they will cross-train your officers and teach them to be able to deal with the immigration issue. Usually, if you're dealing with immigrants that are here illegally, they have violated state laws by signing documents to place their kids into schools, or they're living in HUD, so there are documents out there that they have violated the law under the state laws. So if you enforce them, then when you get them into the system, because that would be your probable cause, and then the immigration issue would come from ICE because you would contact them. But the 287G is something that you do need to look at. I know Farmers Branch has it. In fact, Officer Vasquez with Farmers Branch is their 287G individual, and I actually know him. I didn't know he was until actually the other day, because I had to meet with him on something, and I asked him about it, and he goes, that was me. Well, what they have done is their APHIS system, and the APHIS system is where a lot of the departments, most departments have them, is when you run people's fingerprints, they've been arrested, those fingerprints go into this APHIS machine. This APHIS machine checks you against any fingerprints that, if you got it off a stolen, you recovered a stolen vehicle, you put those fingerprints that you got in there, it'll kick out the person that did it if they're in your system. Well, they cross-reference theirs with ICE. And I think that's something that needs to be done too. And I don't know if that is currently being done with Collin County or not.
Okay. What does the Texas Constitution have to say about illegal immigration, and what power does the sheriff have to combat illegal immigration?
Honestly, I have not looked at the Texas Constitution on illegal immigration. I've always dealt with it because I always worked with the federal agencies down where I'm at. And again, we worked hand in hand. And I know you have to be very careful because racial profiling has become an issue in every state. And if you're dealing with the immigration issue, a lot of times they will try to then use it. The only reason you did it is because you were doing racial profiling. And in Texas, that's actually against the law. So I believe that if you come across it, now as a sheriff, I believe that if I come across it, then I need to notify Border Patrol, Customs, ICE, whoever is locally involved, and have them come out and deal with the situation. But I don't believe under Texas law that you're allowed to incarcerate them for just being illegal aliens.
Habeas corpus prevents individuals from being held indefinitely without probable cause or evidence. Who has authority to suspend habeas corpus, and under what circumstances would you follow orders to suspend habeas corpus?
Well, I believe the governor does. I don't think anybody should be held without due process. I mean, you have the right to do an investigation, and during that investigation you're allowed to hold them for a short period. But if you can't, if you walk in, if law enforcement is holding you, you're allowed to tell them, look, you either arrest me or don't. But if they ask to be released, you have to release them. And I believe that's the way I would handle it. You know what? You have to have probable cause in order to arrest somebody. And that's just exactly how I will handle it. I will not bring in anybody just for bringing them in. My officers will have to have probable cause and either make the arrest or don't. But you can still continue, you can release and still continue your investigation. And then when you get enough probable cause, then you make the arrest.
Okay.
Martial law is the imposition of military rule by military authorities over designated regions. Who has authority to declare martial law in Collin County, and what would be a valid reason for enforcing martial law?
Well, the sheriff has the right to call it. A lot of times it would be probably in some major riot issue, or if you had extremely bad weather where you were unable to, I mean, if you had some of the tornadoes that, not recently, they weren't that, they were bad, they weren't as bad, but I mean, if you had a major disaster and you needed to keep looters out and stuff like that, then yeah, I would see that maybe that would be a reason to at least call martial law as far as setting curfews and things. I don't believe that you should be locking, I mean, during the day, allowing people to get out, and I believe that you would have to really look at it. I mean, it would be difficult to really call that, in my opinion. I mean, the circumstances would have to be very, very extreme. But that's the way I look at that.
All right. If the federal government or the United, if the federal government or the United Nations were to implement a policy of, if the federal government or the United Nations were to implement a policy of door-to-door gun confiscation in your jurisdiction, what would you do?
That's tough. That is a tough question, because you know what? I mean, if it gets to that point, they're probably trying to arrest you too at that point, even your sheriff. And I think that's the plus to the Texas Constitution, is that we're the only ones that can actually break away from the United States. And I'm hoping at that point, if it comes down to that, that's what our governor would do. But no, I don't, especially, I'm not a United Nation. I don't like NATO. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't believe that you know what, the reason we're free is guns, and I would do everything in my power to protect the guns. It would probably end up throwing me in jail or I'd be killed or whatever. But you know what? I think you have to fight for what we believe in, and that's what I believe in.
Okay, great.
On checkpoints, in what instances are checkpoints lawful?
Well, nowadays they seem to allow traffic checkpoints all the time and DWI checkpoints. I'm not real big on traffic checkpoints, I'll be honest. I'm not a traffic guy. I never have been. I mean, I like targeting major crime. Do I think DWI task forces and checkpoints are good? Absolutely. I mean, because they do stop accidents and they do stop people from breaking the law. And I mean, in DWI is a huge issue because it, not only that, it takes the life of a lot of innocent people. Usually the person that's drunk doesn't get the worst injuries. It's always the people that they hit. So I know that they're allowed. Again, I'm not for DWI. I have no issue. I'm not real big about it just for traffic, and that's something that, you know, my focus is going to be on crime. I mean, there's a lot of crime here in Collin County. I know that people, that's not what's been put out. I mean, I know Plano and Allen ranked one of the safest cities, but, and I'm just saying, this is off the current sheriff's website, and this is his crime stats, and this is what it looks like for 180 days out in the incorporated city. I mean, the unincorporated areas. And there is a lot of crime, a lot of burglaries. And those are the things I want to target. That's the whole reason I ran, is because I deal with crime. And these are the reasons. I want to focus my time on crime and not doing a lot of traffic stuff.
Okay, that's good. The National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, Section 1021, 1022, some people interpret the NDAA to allow indefinite detention of lawful American citizens without due process. What is your interpretation, and does NDAA allow for indefinite detention of American citizens?
I'll be honest, I've never read it. Just going to be flat honest. I hate to answer something that I have never read.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty.
And this is the last question. Congress recently passed nationalized health care. It appears that all citizens will be required by law to participate in this federal health care regulation. If citizens in your jurisdiction refuse to accept or use the federal program, and you are ordered to cite or arrest such troublemakers, what would you do?
Well, I believe the Supreme Court still hasn't ruled on that. And I'm hoping that they'll rule against it. And I believe they will rule against it. I mean, my belief is that they will rule against it. But no, do I believe that somebody should be able to force somebody to... Unfortunately, that might turn out that there's going to be a lot of... and I don't know what type of offense they're going to put on that. But I don't believe that you should be arresting people for not buying health care. And again, I don't believe that the government has the right to tell you to buy health care. So it's something that, you know, it's not going to be a high priority in my administration to enforce it if they end up wanting to go that route. I'll just be honest, there's major crime out there that's going to be my concern. And you know, I don't like, I mean, if it's going to be a federal law, you know what, then the federal agencies need to enforce it, because as a state agency, I will not enforce it. I'll just be honest with you. And again, it's probably going to be something that gets me tossed out or may end up in jail. I hope not. I mean, but I'm hoping that that doesn't happen. I mean, I've been Republican all my life. My mom was president of the Federation of Republican Women for all of New Mexico. I mean, very strong Republicans. I don't believe that the government should control. Well, once they pass this, what else are they going to control? What's the next thing? And so I will, hopefully it's something that the state will say, hey, you know what? We can break away. Maybe that's what we need to do. I mean, I hope we don't, because, you know, I'm an American. But thank you.